So my name's Kath Bransby. I work for Waldorf UK and I'm a representative to the European Council for Steiner Waldorf Education. And I also work as a lecturer and researcher at Sheffield Hallam University in their Institute of Education. So I was asked to be an expert advisor to a research project called Rethinking Curriculum that's being run by the Chartered College of Teaching. And as part of that project, they have 6 pilot schools, 6 schools who are very brave and who would like to do something different with their education. So I was asked to work with one particular school, and I went to visit the school, and it was the deputy head who showed me around the school. And the school is very successful. They have very good results. It's an infant school, so children from aged 5 to aged 7. They have very good results. They have very good parent feedback. The behaviour is excellent. And we looked around the school, and the deputy head said to me as we went back to her office, she said, "I'm not happy because these children are merely tolerating their education. They're not engaged. They're not enjoying it. They're not pleased to be here. They are just socially conditioned to follow the rules, and they're just tolerating this." Which means that when they get to a less tolerable form of education in secondary school, then everything drops off a cliff. So they wanted to do something different within their school. They wanted to make sure that their children could find joy in their education. And that's not about making school into an amusement park. That's not about the children being entertained, having fun in that way. It's about helping the children to learn to love learning. It's about the children finding joy in working hard, finding joy in doing better. So they asked me to bring my knowledge of Waldorf education, to bring my knowledge of wider educational research, and to pull together something a bit more creative and different. So I haven't managed to put all the references on all the slides because there's a lot of literature that went into this. So there's a reference sheet at the back. But one of the, so if you could go back one of the key theories that we wanted to, that informed what we did was salutogenesis. So Aaron Antonovsky was a medical sociologist, and he studied survivors of the concentration camps. And he said when women, particularly women, came out of the concentration camps, some of them went on to have very happy, productive lives. And he said the medical profession are very concerned with what makes us ill. But Antonovsky wanted to know what makes us well. So his theory is around health creation. What is it that makes us well? Next slide. And what he found was that what makes us well in the face of adversity, what gives us resilience, is a sense of coherence. And we build a sense of coherence when we experience the world as manageable, meaningful, and comprehensible. So when the world is, if you think about children in schools, when children are told that they are not capable, when they're told that they need help to do everything, that their job is to listen to the teacher and then repeat what the teacher has told them in an exam, that doesn't make them feel like they can manage the world. When their education doesn't feel relevant to them, it's not meaningful. When they're not understanding what is going on in school, it's not comprehensible. So this was our kind of underpinning theory. How can we create a school where their education is coherent, manageable, meaningful, comprehensible, and engaging? So, next slide. We came up with this framework, and the deputy head in particular has a background in early childhood education, where children learn far more independently. So what we wanted to create were classrooms with independent learning spaces where the children could learn alongside an adult sometimes, but with lots of opportunities for independent learning. And we wanted to use what the research tells us is particularly powerful for children in their learning to create these independent learning zones. So the first of those spaces was around storytelling. So if you could, and it will do twice because it will grow. And then the next slide. Thank you. So the research tells us that children's narrative skills, their ability to tell stories, is incredibly important for their learning and development. When we tell stories, it helps us to develop our sense of identity. When you make relationships with people, when you sit in a coffee shop or in a pub, if you're English, what we do is we tell each other stories. We tell each other stories of our lives. We tell each other stories of our opinions, of our views, of our perspectives. And it helps to shape our sense of identity. The way that we organize information mentally is in stories. We develop narratives. It shapes our memory. It shapes our experiences, the way that we perceive our experiences. And stories are this essential part of the building of relationships. So some of the latest research tells us that narrative is an optimum form of thinking for learning, a way of expressing what we know about ourselves, about the world, and about other people. Next slide, please, Chiara. So storytelling, of course, involves books. It involves literacy. It involves reading. But it also involves oral storytelling. It involves things like puppetry. The bottom right, the picture in the bottom right is called a cranky theatre. That's a theatre that the children have made themselves to tell a story. So it's about giving teachers the skills that they need to become storytellers so that they can model that to the children and the children themselves become storytellers in these early years. Next slide, thank you. The next learning space was around engineering. Thank you. And the next one. So we looked at this really interesting report by Guy Claxton and Bill Lucas from the Centre for Real World Learning. They did a report for the Royal Academy of Engineers. And it's the bottom quote that I particularly like. Young children are little engineers, yet the primary school system almost extinguishes any opportunities for them to flourish as engineers. So what Guy Claxton and Bill Lucas looked at was what is it that engineering teaches us, not just what can we bring to engineering. So there's this core engineering mind that's about making things that work and making things work better. And when you engage in engineering activities, you develop engineering habits of mind. Things like system thinking, adapting, not just problem solving, but problem finding. And those lead to learning habits of mind that go across all academic disciplines and help children to learn in any situation. So next slide, please. We used a lot of the work of Dr. Alison Buxton at Sheffield University. She has a project called Maker Spaces, and it's about children learning through doing, learning through exploration, but they learn skills as well. So I brought you, this is an example. This is a cardboard hinge. So you can make these in various scales, and you basically create the shape, and you insert a hinge. You can make so it's about teaching children techniques like this so that they can create with real skill. Okay, now I need Chiara to move the slides again. She's taking pictures for everybody online. Sorry, thank you. That's okay. So the next area is a creative area. So creativity is a key economic contributor in all European and global economies, and it's a growing sector. So we need to foster creativity in our children, particularly in Western economies. This is a real driver of economic growth and success. But creativity, there are many aspects of participation in creative activities. One of them is about physical dexterity. This joke only, this name, sorry, back one, this only really works in English, but we have a professor of surgery at Imperial College called Dr. Kneebone. I don't know if that translates very well. But he has been writing about the problems of finding surgeons, of training surgeons. He says that the young people coming through the education system have this very high academic grades, but they have no physical dexterity. And so he can't train them in surgery because it takes too long. And if you don't learn those skills as a young child, it's very difficult to develop them as an adult. But critical thinking and flexibility and imagination and originality, these are things that we need in our workforce. And then there's the well-being side of things. So the research tells us that participation in creative and cultural activities improves our life satisfaction, it reduces anxiety and depression, it reduces social isolation, and it increases a positive self-esteem. So it's really important for those reasons as well. So in terms of creative spaces, that's about developing children's fine motor skills, but it's also about pleasure. So in the creative space, we also want children to be writing for pleasure. A recent OECD study showed us that children and adults who have developed the ability and the motivation to learn on their own initiative, children and adults who enjoy learning, are really well placed to become lifelong learners. Next slide. And the final independent learning space was for maths. So building on that idea of enjoyment and engagement, the space will be about mathematical play. And again, that's not amusement park mathematics. That is playing games where maths is the engine of the game. And there's some really interesting research. So, for example, when children start school, aged 4 or 5 in the UK, there is a measurable difference in numerical knowledge between children from a low socioeconomic background and children from a more affluent socioeconomic background. And the research has shown that playing numerical board games for just 4 15-minute sessions, so 1 hour in 4 sessions, can entirely close the gap between the disadvantaged children and the more affluent children. So mathematical games help children to develop mathematical thinking, but mathematical thinking in a creative way, as a way of understanding the world and making sense of the world. And playing maths-based games has been shown to reduce maths anxiety, so children are more able to engage in those maths lessons. Next slide, thank you. So there are a huge variety of mathematical games where we say maths is the engine of the game. And one of the approaches that we've been using is in Waldorf education, we've had a project with a researcher called Dan Finkel, who has a program called Math for Love, which is about developing mathematical activities, mathematical games, and mathematical investigations. So I thought we could play a very quick game. If you could do the next slide for me. You should have a little piece of paper like this. You can have one of those, Christopher. Or in fact, I just need to demonstrate. So I have a see, maths anxiety. I have a digital die. We're going to roll the die 7 times. And each time we roll, you can put the number either as a tens or ones. So if we roll 3, it can be 3 or it can be 30. Your aim is to get as close to 100 as you can. But if you go over 100, if you get more than 100, you're out. You break the bank. Okay? So we're going to roll. Are you ready? So your first number is 5. So you can have 50 or 5. You can choose. You get 7 rolls. Okay, your next roll is 6. Roll number 3 is 4. Next roll is 4 again. 3 more numbers to go. You have 6. 6. 2 more to go. You have 2. And your last one. 6. Always a bad last number. Okay, who broke the bank? Who went over? Who thinks they might have a really good score? Anything over? Oh, go on, what's your number? 96. 96 as well. Does anybody, 96? 96. Did anybody get more than 96? Excellent, 96, well done. All our winners. So that is an example of a maths game. In 2 minutes, we did a huge amount of arithmetic. You had to add as you go. You have to be strategic. You have to know how many between the number you have and 100 and work out how many rolls of the die are left and whether you can get close or not. 2 minutes and more mathematics than a page of a textbook. So this is the kind of maths approach that we want to bring. Okay, next slide. And the last part of the classroom, the aim is that by having this very independent learning in the independent learning zones, the teacher can focus on what's called precision teaching. So that means that the teacher, precision teaching was originally, it was designed as a rapid intervention. So where children were really struggling, where children were failing in school, precision teaching was a way of working with a very small group of children to help them make very quick progress. So in this pilot project, the school want to expand precision teaching as a kind of key teaching strategy. So by having the children engaged in independent learning in the different spaces, it means that the teacher can have very small, very purposeful groups to teach in a very precise way. So they can use a lot of formative assessment. They know the children very well. They know where the children's learning is and where it needs to be. They can make purposeful groups. So if there are 4 children who are struggling with one particular aspect of maths or one particular aspect of spelling, they can work with those children together. But most importantly, it means that the teacher is able to make better relationships with those children because they have a more personal, interactive relationship with them. It means that as the child is working, the teacher is able to give them live feedback. The teacher can watch them work and make sure that any misconceptions, any mistakes are picked up very, very quickly and corrected. So it allows children to make progress much more quickly. Okay, lots of references that you won't be able to read, and that was just a small selection, but that's the project that we're working on at the moment. So I hope that's given you an idea of some of the ways that we can do this a little bit differently.